Hey everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel. I am here with my liquid courage as always, and I am so excited to do this May wrap up because May was my best reading month probably in years. Usually I average between 4 to 5 books a month, and in May I ended up reading 11, which is like literally unheard of for me. I think part of it helps too that I participated in Thrill Till the Weekend, so I read a couple of novellas that weekend, and I just really got into a great groove of reading while Wolf was sleeping and in every spare moment that I have, and it really paid off. So we are going to get right into it. Starting with my lowest rated book this month, we have From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. I ended up getting my mom and I both copies of this for Mother's Day so we could read it together, and I was envisioning that we would do like a cute buddy read moment. My mom read it in 12 hours. Since she read it so fast, I was kind of expecting it to be good, and I was just so disappointed. I ended up rating this one 2.5 out of 5 stars. This is about Jasmine. She is a figure skater, and typically she's a pair skater, but her partner just left her. She's been skating solo, but she doesn't really have what it takes to make it as a solo competitor. But she's never gotten a first place before. So she just has these dreams that someday it's going to happen for her. She has put everything into her figure skating career. And then she is approached by Ivan Lukov, who is this world-renowned figure skater, and he's also her arch nemesis. The two of them are then forced to play nice, so it is sort of like an enemies to lovers sort of trope, and there just wasn't much going on. Like, Mariana Zapata is touted as the queen of the slow burn, and now I know that that's just a euphemism for long book, nothing happening. I actually used to be a figure skater myself, so I was really excited for some figure skating content, and it was there, but I feel like there are so many better ways to approach this sort of relationship and this like forced partnership and things like that I think would have been a lot more interesting. But by the time that the romance kicks in, like literally in the last 100 pages, I was so annoyed with both of these characters. I did not care if they ended up together, and anyone who follows me on Instagram has seen just the sheer amount of blinking that happens in this book. She's blinking at him, he's blinking at her. Their blinking is catching each other off guard. It's just like, it actually drove me a little bit insane, and it was to the point where it was the only thing keeping me reading to the end was to literally start a tally of all of the blinks that were happening. So this was not it for me. If this is what Mariana Zapata's other books are like, I will probably not be reading those. Moving on up to the books that I rated 3.5 out of 5 stars, we have All About Love by Bell Hooks. I was really excited to read this. I have actually never read any of Bell Hooks's books before, but I've read articles or interviews and things like that, and a lot of what she has said has resonated with me. So I was really looking forward to this. This was written in the late 90s, published in early 2000s, I think. And it's just looking at the culture as a whole, and what Bell Hooks sees is this culture of cynicism and pessimism, and she thinks that what we need to do to turn society around is learn how to love one another, learn how to better love ourselves, and express that love better to our communities, our children, etc. I actually had a lot of takeaways in here. You can see that I've annotated it quite a bit and underlined quite a few passages. The thing that got to me though, there is a section all about greed, and I talk about this at length in my Mother's Day vlog, which I will link below. But she writes about greed and how people will put love on the back burner in exchange for living a luxurious lifestyle or money and things like that. In particular, in that section, she basically victim blames Nicole Brown Simpson, saying that because she was addicted to her lavish lifestyle, she purposefully kept her and her children in this dangerous and volatile situation with O.J. Simpson. She also doesn't call Monica Lewinsky by name, but she does talk several times about the Clinton and Monica Lewinsky situation, and she gives a lot of credit and props to Bill Clinton and sort of explains his attitude, but then describes Monica Lewinsky as prostituting herself and her story for money, and it was just not the vibe. It really caught me off guard because, of course, we know Bell Hooks as this feminist icon. She states many times in this book that she is a feminist, so seeing her take that position against other women was really shocking. And there are a lot of religious overtones in this book, talks of angels, divine love. Not really my style, didn't turn me off entirely, but that with the victim blaming is why I had to give this a 3.5. And the other book that I rated 3.5 was Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine M. Valenti. I read this on my Kindle like the last day of the month, and I read it probably in 2 hours. It's an extremely fast read, and I actually really liked it. It is about Sophie, and she is this perfect woman that lives in this perfect house and is in this perfect gated community. Perfect. And she has this perfect husband who has this mysterious job. She doesn't really know what he does, and he's gone for long hours. And so she busies herself during the day by socializing with the neighbors and being the perfect visitor and having all of the perfect gifts. And she feels like she's incapable of feeling unhappiness. And then one day while she's getting ready, she notices that one of the drawers in her vanity are locked, and that's weird because there are no locks on the doors in this gated community. There is nothing in her house that should be locked, and so when she pries it open, she opens the drawer and there's a lock of hair that isn't hers inside. This, of course, sends her in a spiral, and suddenly she's questioning everything about her husband, her home, and the friends that she supposedly has who might be hiding something from her. I would describe Comfort Me with Apples as Stepford Wives, but make it biblical. I love Stepford Wives. It's one of my favorite books, and this is extremely similar. I think that Catherine M. Valenti definitely used it as the inspiration for this novella. But if we were looking at the two of them together, they're both saying the exact same thing. So while I really liked the writing in Comfort Me with Apples, even though it's like a little flowery sometimes, since the message was ultimately the same and it didn't say anything different from what I'm assuming was her inspiration, that is why it is a 3.5 for me. Coming in at 3.75 stars is We Need to Do Something by Max Booth III. This is also another super quick read. I think I also read this in an evening. And this is about Melissa. She is trapped in the bathroom with her annoying little brother and her mom and her alcoholic father after a tornado has swept through their town, and now there's a tree blocking their door. They think that it's going to be just a quick thing while the storm passes, and then once they're trapped, it becomes obvious that their situation is a lot more dire. And after some time goes by, all of their sanities are slipping, and Melissa thinks that because of something that she did with her girlfriend, she might be responsible for this predicament that they're in. This one was tough to rate because I read it super quickly and I was super interested and curious to see how it turned out for this family. It's, of course, like this forced proximity, and we have this ticking time bomb of this alcoholic father and the two kids that keep annoying him. And then there's also clearly tension between Melissa's mother and father. Like, marital problems are afoot. And I thought that the writing in this was really great, especially as their consciousness is sort of in and out, and like they're kind of going insane, and Melissa is having visions and isn't able to tell properly what is real and what is just her imagination in this point of like starvation and boredom. However, if you like a novella with a clear ending, this is not for you. I particularly enjoy knowing exactly how a story ends, and this does end quite vaguely. And also, I'm sure this is the point, but I was so annoyed by the little brother character. I would be really jamming along on this book, really loving it. There are some really creepy moments and high tension points, but then it's punctuated by this little brother, and all he really had to add was lots of commentary about butts, pee, poop, farts, and like that sort of thing has a time and a place, and it just inserted itself way too much into the story and way too often. So that is, we need to do something. I actually have quite a few books that I rated 4 and up this month. My average star rating according to Storygraph was 4.7, so that is pretty good. And the first 4-star book that I had this month was Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe. I listened to this on audio, and it took me kind of a long time because it is a thick book. Empire of Pain is about the Sackler family, and they are sort of the family behind OxyContin. Extremely detailed book, and it's super fascinating. He starts from their very humble beginnings of a group of brothers really just trying to use their medical degrees and find their footing and make money. It's super interesting, especially when he gets into how they would create drugs, but then they bought and gained ownership of the marketing companies to promote these drugs. Back in the day, they really started the idea of selling drugs directly to doctors and having that sort of upper hand over prescribing professionals. And it follows them from that start all the way to present day, where now we are dealing with the children that came from those brothers and how they are now dodging responsibility for their hand in creating millions of addicted people. It was super interesting, especially seeing how drugs that they created then became addictive, but they like to say, oh, it's not the drug that's addictive, it's the people abusing them. They have addictive personalities, and that's the real problem. And how that is very much the attitude that they had in modern day as well. And so it's just, they sing the same song over and over throughout the decades, and it's honestly disgusting just how rich these people are, how powerful, how prevalent they are in society, sometimes without us even noticing it. So it's super interesting just seeing this web of marketing techniques and semantics and wordplay and sales and things like that to create a huge dependency on OxyContin. This book did get a little bit repetitive in some parts, but if you really like nonfiction books, especially more like investigative ones, this one is definitely one to check out. My next 4-star book in May was Brother by Anya Alborn. I am so excited that I finally got around to reading this. I loved it, especially the very end. I talk about this a lot in my Thrill Till the Weekend reading vlog, so I won't go too deep here either, but this is about Michael, and he is part of a family that lives in isolation in Appalachia, and he doesn't feel like he connects with his family at all, especially because they love murdering, torturing, and eating women. He really feels stuck, like there's nowhere that he can go. He hates doing what his family makes him do when they have these women that they are trying to kill. But he knows that fighting and resisting his family would just be so much worse. And then he meets a woman in town that works at a record store. And when he starts to fall in love with her after multiple visits, he starts to entertain the idea of running away, and especially with her, and getting away from his crazy ass family. This book is super gory. There's lots of torture in it, which can be tough to read, but it was written really well. And the reason it's a 4-star instead of a little bit higher is because there is a big twist in it that I personally saw a million miles away. So for half of the book, I was really just reading it, waiting to see if that twist was correct, and it was, and then just waiting for that shoe to drop. But then once it does, the ending is so crazy. It happens so fast, and I was literally unable to put the book down until I turned the last page, because I was just holding my breath, jaw open. And especially like the last line, it's like, like, if you've read this, please message me so we can talk about it. And my last 4-star book for the month of May was Tribesmen by Adam Cesar. I also read this for Thrill Till the Weekend, and this is a very quick little book. I think I read it in 12 hours or less. And this is about a scrappy little film crew traveling to a remote island that is cursed. They are traveling there to cash in on the 80s cannibal movie phenomenon that's happening at the time, very much modeled after Cannibal Holocaust. As soon as they get to the island, tensions are high. Everyone is pissed at the director, who is just known for being a sleazeball, but then his sleazeballness increases tenfold when they realize that they've been lied to get to this island. And once the cameras start rolling, all kinds of mayhem ensues. We don't know what is real. We don't know what's acting. Is it the curse? And it was just such a fun read, and especially if you love B horror movies and the exploitation style movies, this is definitely one for you. This month I also finally finished Misery, which I ended up giving a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really loved this book, and it did take me quite a few months to finish it because I really got bogged down with library books and just other things that I was excited to read as well. And I'm low-key mad at myself that I took so long, and also just that it took until 2022 for me to pick up this book in general, because I enjoyed it so much. I'm sure almost everyone knows what this book is about, but in case you don't, this is about Paul Sheldon, who is essentially a stand-in for Stephen King. He is a world-famous writer, and he is known for a series of books called Misery. He hates Misery though. He's ready to put it behind him. He's grateful for the fame and the fans and everything, but he has killed her off. He's ready to start fresh with a brand new book that has nothing to do with Misery, and he just put the finishing touches on it when he gets into a car accident in the middle of nowhere in Colorado. He is luckily rescued by his #1 fan, Annie Wilkes, and she's a nurse, so she's able to take great care of him, keep him alive, and also hold him hostage. Paul Sheldon becomes her prisoner, and she is set on making him resurrect Misery, bring her back to life, and keep writing the series just for her. This book is so dark. I think Elizabeth from Reading Riley, she described it as hopeless. I think that's really perfect. And every time you think Annie Wilkes does something fucked up, she does something even more fucked up. If you're thinking of the fucked up things from the movie, in the book, they're 10 times more fucked up. And there's just a lot of pain in here. There's so many gruesome things happening within this book. And the writing for Stephen King is just really top notch. So I really loved this one. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5, primarily because there would be times when you're reading pieces of the misery story that he is writing for Annie, and it was just too much sometimes. And I just wish that maybe we had gotten a little bit more of Paul plotting his escape. He does sort of start to think about it about halfway through, and I just would have liked to see those wheels turning a little bit more, especially as we hit our conclusion. So that is why it's a 4.5, but I absolutely love this one, and I'm super happy that I finally read it. Now we can go into our 5-star books this month. I had 3, and I'm just so excited about all of them. I loved these 3 books so much. The first one was Just Kids by Patti Smith. I did an entire video about this, so I will link that down below. I did this as part of a new series I'm going to do of rereading favorites to see if they are still a favorite, see how they hold up. This one absolutely holds up. I read this for the first time when I was 19, and it hits just as hard now as it did then. This is a really beautifully written memoir of Patti Smith outlining her time as she moves to New York City in the late 60s, and how she meets Robert Mapplethorpe and how their relationship grows and evolves as they become bigger and better artists. So many cool moments and people that she got to meet and hang out with during her time in New York. Can't recommend this one highly enough. I also gave 5 stars to Linea Negra by Jasmina Barrera. This book is so beautiful. I read this on my first Mother's Day, and I also included this in my Mother's Day vlog. I can't say enough good things about this book. When I took it with me to read in the morning on Mother's Day, I forgot a pen, and I was so bummed because I got a little bit more into annotating this month. But then as I started reading, I realized that I probably would have underlined like the entire book. This book reads extremely fast. It's all like pretty quick paragraphs, and in it she outlines her first pregnancy as she's preparing for the birth of her first child. And this is really juxtaposed to her relationship to her own mother, who is an artist and has just been diagnosed with ovarian cancer. I really loved reading her observations and meditations on her evolving body and her attitudes towards becoming a mother. She cites so many amazing books and different writers and artists and how they viewed motherhood and how she's applying it to her own life. Lots of really great references in here. And there's also like a reading list at the back, which I've read quite a few of them already, but I am excited to read even more. Definitely one that I would recommend for anyone who's like a new parent, going through pregnancy for the first time. This is a book that I wish had been around when I was pregnant, and I think it's definitely one that I will continue to revisit over the years as I grow as a mom. And my favorite book that I read this month, it's like 5 stars with an exclamation point, is The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. I heard of this book through Brandon Baker. I think on TikTok he's Baker Reads, and he includes it in a lot of roundups of books that are dark and disturbing, and this book is definitely dark and disturbing, but so much more. The First Day of Spring starts with an 8-year-old girl named Chrissy as she is in the process of murdering a toddler in her neighborhood. Right out the gate, super dark, super fucked up. After the murder, she is not suspected. She is going about her life, doing her business as an 8-year-old, feeling just really lifted up. She describes it as this fizzy feeling, just knowing that she's done something bad and nobody knows what it is. And while we get these chunks of 8-year-old Chrissy's life, we also get little glimpses into her life as she is now an adult who is a mother herself. She has a young daughter, and she's really struggling being a mom and knowing what it was that she did as a child. And especially when her daughter breaks her arm, she suddenly is filled with paranoia that people are going to see her for who she truly is, and that she is going to lose her daughter who she cares so much about. I really was not expecting the emotional gut punch that this book brought. It is so much more than just 8-year-olds murdering children. It has a lot of that, but it definitely gets into the psychology of her as a child, like what she was thinking at that time when she was killing that little boy, and how she justified it to herself, and like what her life was like at home to make her think that this sort of thing was okay. And the parts of this book that take place in her childhood are just so sad. Like, as you're reading it, you really start to understand her headspace as she did this really terrible thing. And then as a grown-up, you really feel for her as well. I really was not expecting to side with her as much as I did. And just like the emotional payoff of this book was so incredible. And I just really cannot recommend this book enough. It completely took me by surprise. I will absolutely be reading anything else that Nancy Tucker puts out. The writing was beautiful. The characters were so real. Like, I felt like Chrissy was a real person, and she was so layered, and there's so many different parts of her that really made you question yourself and your own morals and like what you want to believe. And it was just so incredible. Definitely recommended this. 5+ stars, and I just really loved this book. Those are all of the books that I read for the month of May, and so far my wave has been correct, where I had a not so great reading month, great reading month, not so great reading month, amazing reading month. And so based on that pattern, June might be a little slow for me, and I absolutely believe that. The month of June is an insanely busy month for this household. We have my son's first birthday. We are traveling to Detroit for his birthday party. It is going to be also our 6-year wedding anniversary on the same day that we're having his party. It is Father's Day, and we've got some big life shit that is happening this month. So I am not going to be surprised if June is a bit slower. And just with everything going on, I'm really in the mood for some light, fluffy reads. So I'm anticipating that my June wrap up will have a lot of romances and maybe some more novellas as well. If you have watched this far, please be sure to leave a comment down below if you have read any of these books. I would love to talk about them with you, and I'm curious to hear what your favorite books were in the month of May. Also, if you are new here, please be sure to subscribe. Gives me a confidence boost every single time, and be sure to like this video as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Happy reading, and cheers!